You know, there is a specific kind of madness in the modern world. People spend all their time looking for the move, the play, the secret. They want to be brilliant once and retire. It's total nonsense. The world isn't driven by brilliance. It's driven by accumulation. If you want to understand how wealth is actually built, not the lottery ticket wealth that disappears in a generation, but real wealth, you have to understand the most powerful force in the universe. Einstein called it the eighth wonder of the world. I just call it doing the math. Now, the first rule of compounding, and listen closely because most of you will fail at this. The first rule is to never interrupt it unnecessarily. That sounds simple, doesn't it? It sounds like a fortune cookie, but almost nobody can do it. Why? Because compounding is boring. It's like watching grass grow. It's like watching paint dry. And human beings, especially the ones with a little bit of IQ, they get restless. They want to do something. They want to tweak the engine while the car is moving at 80 miles an hour. It's a form of insanity. Let's look at the numbers. They don't have feelings, so they don't lie to you. Imagine you have two people. One is smart and the other is patient. The smart one finds a way to make 15% on his money, but he's always jumping in and out. He sees a headline, he gets scared, he pays a tax, he pays a commission. He interrupts the chain. The patient one, he's maybe not as clever. He gets 7 or 8% in a boring index fund, but he does nothing for 30 years. By the end, the patient man is sitting on a mountain of gold, and the smart man is still looking for the next big thing. The math of compounding is counterintuitive. That's why it's so hard. In the beginning, for the first 10, 15 years, nothing seems to be happening. You're saving, you're being frugal, you're denying yourself that flashy car, and your account balance looks like a flat line. You think, why am I doing this? Charlie is a fossil, this doesn't work. But then, you hit the elbow of the curve, and suddenly the interest on your interest is making more money in a month than you used to make in a year. That is the Lollapalooza Effect. That is when the physics of wealth takes over. But you'll never see it if you can't keep your hands off the keyboard. If you can just stay rational and stay out of your own way, the world will eventually give you a lot of money. It's almost inevitable. But first you have to stop trying to be smart and start being consistently not stupid. Now, I hear this all the time. Charlie, that's easy for you to say. You're a billionaire. You've got the Berkshire machine behind you. I've only got a few $100. What's the point? It's a massive mistake to think that the size of your start determines the scale of your finish. It's the geometry that matters. Think about a snowball. If you're at the top of a very long hill and you start with a snowball the size of a marble and you roll it and you keep it rolling and you don't let it hit a tree, by the time it hits the bottom, it's a giant boulder. But if you start halfway down the hill with a snowball the size of a basketball, you might still end up with a smaller result than the man who started at the top. The hill is time. That's your greatest asset. And the tragedy of the modern world is that young people are time-rich but wisdom-poor. They throw away the most valuable part of the hill because they think they need a big nut to start. You don't need a big nut, you need a start. When I was starting out, I wasn't looking to be the richest man in the cemetery. I just wanted my independence. I wanted to be able to tell people to go to hell if I didn't like what they were saying. And to get that, I had to be a little bit more disciplined than the next guy. Most people, they get their first paycheck and they think, what can I buy? They buy a car, they buy a watch, they buy a life they can't afford to impress people they don't even like. That is a form of self-bondage. If you can just save a little bit, even if it's a pathetic amount, and you put it into something productive, you are planting a seed. Now, a seed doesn't look like much. You look at an acorn and you don't see a giant oak tree. You see a little piece of nut in the dirt. But the instructions for the oak tree are inside that nut. The instructions for your wealth are inside that first $1,000. If you spend it, the instructions are gone. You've burned the blueprint. But if you leave it alone, If you're consistently not stupid enough to let it sit there, the math takes over. We live in a world now where you can buy a fraction of a great company for the price of a hamburger. There are no excuses left. The gatekeepers are gone. The only gatekeeper left is the person looking back at you in the mirror. You don't need to be a genius. You just need to be rational. And the rational thing to do, the only thing that makes any sense at all, is to start the snowball rolling today. Not tomorrow, not when you get a raise. Today. Because the hill is only getting shorter. And you don't want to run out of hill. Thinking of how to explain something to a child. Most people, they think investing is a verb. They think it's an action. They think if they aren't clicking buttons and calling brokers and watching the little red and green lights on a screen, then they aren't doing anything. It's a massive hallucination. In the world of high-stakes compounding, the money is not made in the buying, and it's not made in the selling. The money is made in the waiting. I call it sit on your ass investing. And let me tell you, it's the hardest work you'll ever do, because the entire world is designed to make you move. Your broker wants you to move so he can take a commission. The news wants you to move so they can get a headline. Your own ego wants you to move so you can feel like a player. But if you've done the work, if you found a great business or a great index and you've bought it at a rational price, the best thing you can do is go take a nap for 10 years. We have a concept at Berkshire. We call it the Circle of Competence. Most people spend their lives trying to be experts in everything. They want to know about biotech and AI and gold mines and Turkish currency. It's total idiocy. You don't need to be an expert on 1,000 things. You just need to find one or two things you actually understand, and then you stay inside that circle. If something comes along that's outside that circle, even if everyone else is getting rich on it, you put it in the too tough bucket. I have a very large too tough bucket. It's full of things I don't understand, and I don't care. I don't need to know everything to get rich. I just need to avoid being stupid in the few areas I do know. You see, the trick isn't to be brilliant. The trick is to be rational. Rationality is a moral requirement. If you aren't being rational, you're just a gambler in a suit. And a rational man knows that he doesn't have an edge in everything. He waits, he sits, he watches, he waits for a fat pitch. Ted Williams, the greatest hitter who ever lived, he wouldn't swing at a ball that was 2 inches outside the strike zone, even if the crowd was screaming, even if the pressure was on. He waited for the ball to be right in his happy zone. That's what you have to do with your life. You find your zone, you find your circle, and then you have the discipline to do nothing until the right opportunity arrives. The world is full of people who are doing something and going broke. Don't be one of them. Be the person who is sitting still and getting rich. It's much more pleasant, I can assure you. He is laying out the cold, hard physics of the market. Now, let's talk about the difference between a builder and a gambler. Because most people, even the ones who call themselves investors, are really just gamblers with better vocabulary. If you go to a casino, or you open a betting app on that little rectangle in your pocket, you are playing a game where the physics are against you. The house has an edge. It's built into the math. Every time you pull the lever or place the bet, you are fighting a headwind. You might win a few, you might get that dopamine hit, but the more you play, the more the math grinds you down. But look at the stock market. Look at the history of productive businesses. If you look at the daily data for over 100 years, the market is green, it's positive, roughly 54% of the time. Now, 54% doesn't sound like a miracle. It sounds like a coin flip with a dent in it. But in the world of compounding, 54% is everything. It means that when you own a slice of the world's best businesses, you aren't the gambler anymore. You are the house. Think about what that means. Every single day, the drift of human progress and inflation and productivity is pushing your snowball just a little bit further. You have a tailwind. When you bet on a horse or a football game, you have to be right this second. You're fighting the clock. But when you compound, the clock is your partner. And yet, people love the betting. They love the action. Why? Because compounding is too slow for their ego. They want the big score. They want to turn 1,000 into 1,000,000 by next Tuesday. It's a form of mental infirmity. I've seen so many brilliant people, physicists, doctors, engineers, ruin their lives because they couldn't stand the idea of getting rich slowly. They took a 54% edge and they traded it for a 48% hunch. In a parimutuel system, like at the racetrack, the odds change based on what everyone else is doing. If everyone thinks a horse is going to win, the payout is so low it's not worth the risk. The stock market is the same way. But the great advantage you have is that you don't have to bet every race. You can wait. And while you wait, that 54% edge is quietly working in the background of your boring index fund or your quality holdings. You don't need to be lucky. You just need to be on the right side of the arithmetic. If you can't handle a little bit of boredom, if you need the rush of the casino, you're going to have a very hard life. But if you can align yourself with the math, if you can become the house, the world will eventually give you all the money you can handle. It's not magic. It's just inevitable drift. I've seen a lot of people who think they're rich because they have a high income. They're doctors, they're lawyers, they're executives, and they spend every damn dime they make. They live in a house that's too big. They belong to a club they don't need, and they drive a European car that costs more than a small business. Let's look at the math, because the math is what matters. If you take $60,000 and you buy a car, what do you have? You have a piece of metal that starts rotting the moment you drive it off the lot. In 10 years, it's worth a fraction of what you paid. In 20 years, it's a pile of junk in a scrapyard. But if you take that same $60,000 and instead of buying the status symbol, you put it into a productive asset and you let it compound at, say, 7 or 8%, in 30 years, that $60,000 isn't a car. It's $450,000. So I ask you, was that car worth $500,000? Was the look on your neighbor's face worth your entire retirement? If the answer is yes, then you are a fool, and there's no cure for being a fool. Most people, they don't understand that every dollar you spend on unnecessary things is a soldier you've sent to his death. You've killed your own army. And don't even get me started on the debt. Taking a loan to buy something that goes down in value is a form of financial suicide. You are paying the interest to someone else. You are making them rich. You are the one being compounded against. It's a Lollapalooza of stupidity. Being frugal isn't about being cheap. It's about being rational. It's about recognizing that independence is worth more than stuff. I didn't want a Ferrari. I wanted to be able to think for myself. I wanted to be able to say no to things I didn't believe in. And you can't say no if you're a slave to a car payment. The most powerful thing you can do for your future self is to be consistently not stupid with your spending today. Don't buy the trash. Don't take the loans. Focus on the consistency. Keep your costs low. Keep your soldiers alive. And let the clock do the heavy lifting. If you can just stay out of the luxury trap, if you can find joy in the process of building rather than the process of showing off, you'll find that wealth comes to you quite naturally. But most people can't do it. They'd rather look rich today than be rich tomorrow. It's a tragedy, but it's a tragedy that makes the rest of us very, very wealthy. So, where does all this leave us? We've talked about the math. We've talked about the 54% edge. We've talked about the insanity of buying things you don't need with money you don't have to impress people you don't like. It all sounds so simple, doesn't it? And yet, if it were easy, everyone would be a billionaire. The reason they aren't is because of a lack of character. To get where you want to go, you have to be willing to, as I like to say, slug it out 1 inch at a time, day in and day out. You have to be the kind of person who gets up in the morning and tries to be a little bit smarter than they were when they woke up. You do your task. You stay frugal. You keep your hands off the compounding machine. Most people are looking for a miracle. They want a breakthrough. They want the world to hand them a trophy just for showing up. But the world doesn't work that way. The world is a giant competitive system, and it rewards the people who are reliable. If you are reliable, and you are rational, and you are patient, you have a massive advantage over everyone else. Because most people are flaky, irrational, and impatient. You don't need a high IQ. I've known plenty of people with 150 IQs who are total disasters in life because they lack the Munger, the ability to sit still and be sensible. I'm an old man now. I've seen a lot of cycles. I've seen the Nifty 50. I've seen the dot-com bust. I've seen the Great Recession. And every time the people who won were the ones who didn't panic, didn't over-leverage, and didn't stop the compounding. The Lollapalooza Effect, that big explosion of wealth and success, it only happens at the end of the process. You have to earn the right to see it. You earn it by being bored for 10 years. You earn it by driving the old car. You earn it by saying no to the gambler's itch. So my advice to you is simple. Stop looking for the shortcut. There is no shortcut. There is only the long road. And the long road is actually the shortest way to get where you want to go. Be the house. Trust the 54%, and for heaven's sake, don't be stupid. It's been a long life, and I can tell you, it's a lot more fun being successful than being a failure, and it's a lot more fun being rational than being a victim of your own impulses. Go out there, stay in your circle, and just keep rolling that snowball. Before I let you go, I want to mention one more thing that most people overlook. We've talked about money. But the most important thing that compounds in this life isn't your bank account, it's your understanding. If you spend every day trying to get a little bit wiser, if you read the right books and study the right people, that knowledge begins to build on itself. It's a Lollapalooza effect for the mind. You start to see patterns where others see chaos. You start to see the 54% edge where others see a gamble. Now, if you've stayed with me this long, you're already more patient than 90% of the population. That's a good sign. It would be a rational decision for you to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Not for some ego reason, but because it signals to the algorithms that this kind of sensible, slow-moving logic is actually worth spreading. It's a small act of discipline that helps the compounding of this community. Most of what you see on these screens is junk food. It's designed to make you excited and then leave you broke. If you find a place that gives you real nutrients, you ought to stick with it. I've lived a long time, and I can tell you that the people who win are the ones who are constantly learning. They don't just stop when they finish school. They are learning machines. If you can combine a learning machine with a compounding machine, and you add a little bit of that slug-it-out character we talked about, well, the world is going to have a very hard time keeping you from being successful. It's all right there for you. The math is there, the logic is there, the 54% is there. The only question is whether you have the temperament to let it work. I hope you do. It's a much better way to live. Good luck. You're going to need a little bit of it, but if you're rational, you won't need nearly as much as the next guy.